and then we'll get down to the questions.
Okie doke.
Okay, YouTube's coming up. Earlier I did it and Facebook took. Oh, Facebook's coming up.
Oh, it's
YouTube's
working
coming up. Oh, look at that. That is the easiest so far. That is the smoothest.
Team colours, easy loading up.
We're on it. I've been doing this since January, not every week, obviously, but that was the easiest, straight in with it. Really, really happy with that.
Brilliant.
Okay, I must remember, the only thing with Facebook is, with YouTube, it goes straight live, and Facebook, you have to then go live as well. So if I get too excited because the picture's on there and then I forget to go live. But no, we are now live, and we are live on YouTube as well, which is lovely. And as Debbie said, this wasn't arranged, but team colours somehow. Hi, Debbie. How are you?
I am very well, Claire. Thank you very much for asking me to join you.
You're very welcome. So before we get started talking all about you, just a little introduction that I like to do these lives here on Facebook and over on the YouTube channel to speak with members of the Creativity Found Collective so that they can tell people what it is they do. Now, members of the Creativity Found Collective may be people who teach their creative skills through classes or online courses, like in real life workshops, kits, things like that. And also within the membership, I have some really lovely business helpers and supporters. So people that can make your life a bit easier, Debbie, so that you get to do the arting and the crafting a bit more. So we might have website people and SEO people and coaches and things like that. So we'll have those on these as well in the future to tell you how they can help small businesses. I'm just going to do something clever that I learned yesterday.
Ooh.
And so what happens with these lives, that's the clever thing, and then it goes away again on its own at some point. Oh. What happens with these lives is that obviously they go live, they then stay in the Facebook group, they stay on YouTube. I then at some point will go back and make them into a bonus podcast episode as well. So there are 3 ways that your information, Debbie, will stay out there in the world. Podcast wise, as you know, these can be found at any time. So it's really great to have all those different options and ways that people can find you. So if you are a small business, whether a creative small business or someone that helps small businesses, and you'd like a little bit of that, do please visit creativityfound.co.uk/join us. Find out more about the membership. It's only $5.99 a month. Promotional networking. It's a really lovely place to be. So let's move over to you, Debbie. Please tell me and everybody, how do you help adults to get creative?
Right. So I'm a potter, and I have been teaching pottery since 2007. Primarily within sort of an adult education / college setting. So I don't usually teach children, although I have done. So it's mostly sort of people 18 plus out of a formal education setup. And I think that's important because I don't want to scare people off. I don't want to have them, filling in forms and having criteria to meet and goals to meet. I think it's really important as an adult coming into a taught situation that you feel comfortable. Really, we all know of people who had a bad time at school, and I certainly don't want to replicate that. I want to provide a supportive, positive, warm environment for people to feel comfortable in. Because you learn better when you're comfortable, when you like the people that you're with, that you can talk comfortably with the people you're with. So I think that's really important. I have a sort of, how can I put it? There's this phrase, student-led teaching. And I think that's great after a certain amount of knowledge has been gained, because it's one of those, unknown unknowns. If someone walks into my class and knows nothing about pottery, I say to them, what do you want to do? They don't know. it's actually an intimidating question, and instantly barriers are going up and we're spiraling down. So I set out to teach people the 4 main ways that I can teach. There are 5 main ways of making pots, but I predominantly only teach 4. I want to give them those 4 method experiences, and then as they go along, they become comfortable with the clay. They like the fact it goes up their nails, and they don't mind that. They'll go home with it in their hair and up their elbows, and that's great. And then when they know a little bit about it, then they can say, actually, no, Deb, I'd really like to do this. Yeah. And then we're off. But, every pottery teacher will tell you they've had the student that's walked in, and you do say, hi, how are you? What are you expecting out of their session? Go, well, it's like September. By Christmas, I want to have an 8-piece dinner service. I've had it done to me. I honestly thought it was apocryphal. And you don't want to diss someone, and you don't want to cut them down, and because you want it all to be positive and nurturing and warm. But you've also got to manage their expectation. So I don't know where I'm going with this, really. I think I should sort of backtrack. But my primary aim is to provide that supportive, nurturing environment where there is no such thing as a silly question, where and I'm I get people say to me, what happens if I do this? I don't know anything about pottery, and I will say, I don't know anything about pottery, let's have a go. Because there's a difference between children and adults. Children play for the sake of it. You put them in a room with a bucket of water and a pile of dirt and a spade in the bucket, and they may end up making mud pies, but they don't sit there and say, I'm going to make 12 mud pies. That's just not how kids' brains work. They want to get wet, they want to get muddy, they want to go digging in, and that's what I want adults to do. But adults have got all this layer of education on them, and you've got to strip that out. And so I think it's important for me to show a vulnerability that I don't know everything, but together we can learn. And I think that's important. I mean, I may be overthinking it, but and I know sometimes people go, you don't know that? I think, well, clay is an incredible material. I mean, I know every artist thinks their material is the best in the world, so we're all biased. But for example, one place I work, we must have 30 glazes, and I know how each one of them works, but I don't necessarily know how glaze number 1 would work with glaze number 29 put together. But let's try, let's see. And I think that's important to sort of support people. So it's just allowing that to happen. So I'm just waving to my other half to go away. He's not taking the hint. Sorry about this. Go away! Go away! I'm online. I do apologise. I did tell him. I've even got a thing on air that says on air.
Yeah, I've got one of those, but that still always happens as well when I'm recording. Like every time, I know.
But I don't know if I've answered your question.
Yeah, so you're kind of it's interesting because you have a knowledge, but you're not then imposing everything, all of your knowledge on a person. So you might, if somebody says, I'll try this, and or you have a good idea how that would turn out because you've done it before, but otherwise you think, well, I don't know of any reason why that would be bad, so let's see what happens. I think with clay and pottery generally, it's always a bit perilous, isn't it?
Jeopardy. Yeah, there is. I mean, as you know, I say it keeps you humble. Clay keeps you humble.
Yeah, you
can do everything right. I mean, I'll give you an example. I hope she won't mind me mentioning this. A student of mine. I do grill my people. If you want to make something for Christmas, start the previous January. So she came in January, and she said, I want to make dinner plate and a bowl for each of my family. There's 5 in her family for Christmas. And in January, that is not a bad aim.
Yeah.
She's actually very skilled as a potter. She's been coming for a long time. So fine, okay. Well, we've got 5 bowls. This is what, June now, end of June, 6 months in. We have not been able to make one dinner plate that hasn't cracked. Now I've got my skills. I've got my network. I've put the question out to my network, and they've all come back, and we've done everything everyone suggested, and we are now down to the last 2 things. One is you're using the wrong clay. Now this is a cop out by a potter. We know it's a cop out. It's a bit like golfers that get the ips and they change their keys and car keys in their pockets. It really is that. And the other is the stars aren't aligned yet, which is also a very big cop out. But, you know, unfortunately, this lady, lover, she has been around pottery and clay long enough to know that, first of all, she trusts me. She also knows that I've gone to my contacts. And she's easygoing enough to go, yeah, okay, the plates aren't going to happen. I honestly don't know why. Everyone else in the room is this is the thing. There are other people who have produced plates in that time that have not cracked.
Yeah.
Really weird. You've got to laugh about it, otherwise you'd cry. But it's that sort of, you know, yeah, it keeps you humble.
Yeah.
So even though clay is the best material in the world, it has its downsides.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or it has its limitations. Talk about downsides. Limitations, you know. There are, I mean, I used to teach one lady. She was so creative. And she wanted to do things with clay that were just amazing ideas. And in the end, again, I spoke to people. How can I help someone do this? And in the end, we actually said, what you need to do is work in glass. Yeah. Do you know, I can't pronounce the name of the chap. It's something like Chichuli. You go into the Natural Science Museum, or is it the Royal V&A, and there's this wonderful glass, blue and green glass, chandelier sculpture. She wanted to do something like that in clay. And this was some time ago. And it's like, she had this idea of spiraling clay. Oh, I mean, the idea was amazing. But we had to say, look, I don't want to let you go, but glass could be where you need to be.
So do you have people in your classes making different things then?
Oh yeah, I say, you know, I can give a kilo of clay to 12 people, and I'll have 14 different things being made at any one time.
Yeah,
and that's good because, as I say, that there's 5 main making methods. I don't really do slip casting, which is the 5th way. And everyone will have, you know, some people will adore throwing. Some people can't stand it. Some people love coiling. I adore coiling. Some people don't. So instantly, the way you make sort of affects how you go about a project. So it's nice to have different projects going on because, first of all, it's interesting for me as a teacher. Let's be quite honest. I don't want everybody making the same. You know, this is the joy. I am not teaching a GCSE A-level course or an A-level course. Everyone can bring their own projects along. I mean, they've always got ideas for people if they've come and they've got nothing to do. And it also means that people are learning from others, from each other, not just from me. So, you know, if Flossie over there is slab rolling and Millie over here is pinching, oh, she's doing that. Oh, I wonder if I could. And, you know, there's all these cross-fertilization. Sorry, I'm waving my hand around too much. Cross-fertilization of ideas is going on. And I can be the other side of the room. You know, so in that respect, it's I find it very interesting. So, I mean, if someone were to walk into my class tomorrow and say, "I've never tried pottery before, I want to learn," I would take them through the 4 making methods, and the order I go in, unless they have any preference, is the order that we think human beings worked. So we start off with pinching. Then we go to coiling, then we go to slab building, then we go to throwing. And that's just, as well, you start off with the easiest method, you end up with the most complicated. And my job is to get people hooked on clay. I do
Yeah.
fail. I do fail. You know, some people go, "Ooh, no, not for me. Don't like the clay up the nails." Fine.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
people have had a go, and I think that is. I mean, one of the things you say, you know, is why I think it's important for people to just have a go is because there's lots and lots of things you can work with out there to be creative. You've got clay, you've got wood, you've got sculpt and a stone, you've got junk. You know, you can cut up old t-shirts and weave them. Words, people can be incredibly creative with words. It doesn't matter what your medium is, but if you haven't found one yet, go out there and have a go.
Yeah.
And find it, because there is one out there for you. I am a firm believer in this. I really am. I think it's human beings have. I mean, speech is obviously one of the main characteristics of humanity, but so is creativity. And I'm not saying other animals don't create, but we know human beings do. We have got art, and it can only be called art, from 30,000 years ago, 50,000 years ago. You know, life expectancy was probably in the early 30s, you know, but people still made time to make their to interact with their environment, to make it attractive. The oldest clay sculpture we have is 30,000 years old. And I'll put it in the comments when we finished. It's a little clay figure. She's about 5 inches tall. She is in perfect proportion. Da Vinci would have, you know, signed up to her. She is perfectly proportioned. She hasn't her facial features. Obviously, hadn't cracked noses. I'm there with them. She has full breasts. Looks like a pregnant tummy. And she isn't just a bare figure. She's got details on her hair. She's got, I mean, she is just exquisite. 30,000 years ago.
Yeah.
And she is so detailed and beautifully proportioned. That wasn't that first rodeo, that person. Yeah, that was the result of practice, probably training. I had someone else to do that. And that is just spine tingling. The oldest vessels we've got, these were used for food because there's burnt food inside them, come from Japan. And the oldest ones are about 18,000 years old. You know, out of an ice age, barely out of an ice age, for God's sake. And every single, I mean, some quite large pieces of the pots have been discovered, and they are all decorated. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't decorate my saucepans.
No.
I don't. I mean, I know there is a tradition of enamelling on saucepans, but I personally don't do that. But these people have decorated something that they're then going to cook their food in.
Yeah.
So it's functional, but they've made the function have an aesthetic to it.
Yeah.
So it's in our DNA. It's in our DNA, and it's up. It's some people, you know, create through the cookery. Some people, you know, sit down and knit. One of my grandmothers was an incredibly fine and expert knitter. So it's just, you know, finding that medium for you.
And when you see people in your classes, other than making, what kind of benefits do you see around that in them?
Everyone at some point will say they find it relaxing. I mean, it literally earths them. Excuse the pun. It earths them. Time certainly moves at a different pace in a pottery studio. It runs fast. So, you know, if someone comes in for 2.5 hours, 15 minutes later, I'm saying, oh, time to go home, people. Well, I've only been here 20 minutes. And they have been totally engrossed in what they're doing. It's social. So, you know, I do have people who come in who they don't necessarily say so, but you get the feeling that may have been their only social contact that day, let alone the week. I don't know. And sometimes people won't say very much, but they'll listen in and, you know, giggle along with the jokes and things, and other people come along and share their life's history. So it allows you to leave all the rubbish at the door, and it's. I had someone say to me on Monday that she loved coming along to classes. She had somewhere she could work at home, but she could bet your bottom dollar as soon as she started, there'd be a "Mummy," you know, or the front doorbell would go or something. And this is completely boundaried space and time for it's me time. It's me time. You know, it's not. You know, some people like going to spas or sitting on beaches, but other people like getting clay up their nails or knitting or painting and getting paint in their ears and things, and that's absolutely brilliant. But if the good thing about a class is that it's your time, your time. And I think that's so important.
I mean, that's exactly where I started with when I used to do the drama and singing classes. And that was something I hadn't realised, but I really, really wanted was that time. And you do then not think about all the other things on your mind, and you can have a complete escapism. And I think that is very, very valuable. And I still do it now with some things that I go to, like this is my thing that I do, and I just do this, and it's fabulous. You've been a member of the Creativity Found Collective from the word go. So why do you value being part of any kind of creative community, or in particular the Creativity Found community?
One thing I find, because when I'm not teaching, I'm making and selling. That side of it is actually quite lonely. It's very solo. So it is. It's very. I was going to say necessary, but that sounds terribly instructive, and I don't mean that. But I'm going to say it's necessary to have those networks around you, so that I can have a little bit of a, people to bounce ideas off of. You know, I'm thinking of going doing this fair. What do you think? Or I've got a client asking me to do this. What do you think? So they can be very practical forums for sort of getting that sort of information. I was at an event over the weekend, as you know, and somebody said something. He was looking at one of my pots. He said, "Oh, wouldn't it be lovely if you could do a bit of a collaboration with?" And he didn't even say a name. And I'm going, "Vicky." And this is a lady who does embroidery work. And I'm thinking, she can embroider my pots. And I'm not thinking that she'd actually sew the pots, but she could do embroidery representations of my pots, and she does them as jewelry.
Oh, wow.
So I haven't done it yet, but I'm going to send her some images, and she's going to actually embroider up. And it's that sort of idea.
Yeah.
She does butterflies and flowers and geckos and things. They are exquisite. So she's going to have a go at one of my pots, and you get those collaborations. And nothing. She may only make me one, and I know I've done work with bookbinders. We've only made one or two, but we both learned so much from working slightly outside our comfort zones that it pushes my skill level as well, and it's just fun. That's important. I think that's important. And as adults, I am an incredibly fortunate person. I work in an area that I adore, I love. And I know that there are many, many people out there who simply go to work to get money, to pay the bills, to put food on the table. And I respect them for that, because, they do it. But I think it's important as well that we recognise that every human being has got a creative element, and that we help them achieve that, even if it's only for 2.5 hours a week on a Monday evening. And if I'm working, I'm a member of lots of different groups. I'm a member of the Oxfordshire Craft Guild, and that's very sort of practically based. You know, I've got a lot of potters there that I can go to, you know, my network, you know, how do I stop plates cracking? And they'll help me. Whereas creativity foundries are much more, as you said, there's businessy people, there's people like yourself who've been in art and dance and acting and things, completely alien world to me. But, you know, we can cross-fertilize ideas and experiences, which helps us in our creative roles as well as, it helps us in our creative roles. No man is an island, and that's never more the case in art, because we can all learn from each other. You know, I can learn from a dancer. I tell this story because it's a little bit daft. But many years ago, I was looking to do a master's, and I was looking at a university that I will remain nameless, but they offered an undergraduate degree in pottery and interpretive dance. And part of me wanted to sort of, I've got to sign up for that. It was just the way that their offering was that you could choose, you know, you had to do two, and you could choose one from that column and one from that column, and interpretive dance was an option.
Oh, I can just, so what you'd have then as well is you could have your dance studio, and then you have a circle of pottery studio around it, and then there can be live dancing while you're live creating, inspired by the dance.
Creative synergy going on here.
There you go. See, this is why we're members of a membership that gets people together of all sorts of disciplines. Brilliant.
And I think it's really important. I mean, I've got a group that is just potters, and then I've got this group which is multi disciplined.
Yeah.
You know, people coming from all sorts of walks of life and disciplines, and it's just, I mean, both groups give me thrills, you know.
Yeah.
But slightly different to one to the other. I wouldn't come along or, you know, ask anyone in the group about pottery because, and in the creativity fan group, because there isn't anyone. But I would ask them about, you know, what's happening with my website.
Yeah, exactly. And even though you're all different disciplines and different ways of teaching as well, like some might be classes, some might be kits, some are supplies, some are online, some are in real life, there are the same problems, challenges, you know, the same kind of challenges, despite what it is you're actually doing, and sharing those kinds of things. I mean, we had a really good chat at our online meetup recently about teaching remotely and different ways that people do that, and that was very useful to everybody for all sorts of different reasons. So those kind of, and just somebody might have experience of having done something, and they can give you some pointers, and vice versa. So all of that mix, and at different places within your creative teaching journey as well, different elements of that. Well, that's the aim anyway, that there's that element of it, as well as actually obviously the promotion, things like this, the website being, you know, mentioned on the podcast all the time. So that's lovely. I'm glad you feel that way. What's coming up for you in the future?
Right, so sort of two things. I've been working with a lady called Ali Jones at Oxfordshire Arts, which is a purpose-built pottery studio just outside Didcot, a little village called East Hendred. And I'm going to be doing an additional session with her come September, which will be fun. And then with another group that I belong to, as I've mentioned them already, the Oxfordshire Craft Guild. We've been primarily a group that focuses on working together to provide selling venues, you know, a commercial sort of element of it. And we want to be more social. We want to have that more, I've got this pot's giving me real problems, can anyone help? So I'm sort of leading on that. We've had a couple of meetings already. We've got a session in a couple of weeks where we're going to all turn up, eat cake, drink tea, and bring a pot along that we want people to talk about. So that's going to be interesting. And then I've also got, we also want to go as a group to look at different galleries, exhibitions and things. And it's that social side. But it isn't just social, there's also a bit of crossing of technical knowledge as well. So that's what I've got lined up in the next sort of 3 to 6 months. And obviously, we're coming up to the summer holidays now. Although I am doing a bit of teaching over the summer as well, both to individuals and Oxford Summer School, and again Oxfordshire Arts as well. It's interesting. Pottery classes are so popular at the moment. I rarely get to the third week in September without another college contacting me saying, "Can you come teach another session?" It's like, no, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I really can't.
Well, that's lovely. That's brilliant that there are people wanting to do it.
I mean, if there are any potters out there who like the idea of teaching, there are so many organisations that are desperate for pottery teachers. It really is really quite interesting, just how popular pottery is, which I think is amazing, wonderful, but so few of us teachers about. There doesn't seem to be anyone coming in. There are those of us who are either retired or thinking of cutting back, which is what I'm doing. Cutting down, I should say, and there's no one coming in from the sort of fresh new faces type thing, and they're coming with a lot of skills, just different skills from me, and that's brilliant. And it would be nice to know if they had the confidence to share those with us.
Yeah.
So a little call out to all potters out there. Think about teaching.
Yeah.
I mean, sorry. I was just going to say, one of the reasons I personally love teaching is it keeps me up to date, because I know someone will have gone to X show, they'll have looked, watched the throwdown, and how do we do this? So I have to keep my skills honed and up to date, which I think is a good discipline for me.
Yeah. Brilliant. Thank you so much, Debbie.
You're very
so if there's anybody out there who's thinking, I'm vaguely confident I might give teaching a go now that Debbie said that people are needed, use the link in the bio to visit Debbie's page at creativityfound.co.uk. So I'm actually just going to see if I can stick it in here and be clever.
Oh, don't cut us off.
Oh, now you've made me panic. I'm not going to do it.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
No, but it's made me think of something I can set up for in the future. All of these new things on the streaming only came up yesterday. So, so I've learned them quickly. But anyway, so thanks so much, Debbie. Just before I say bye. The link to Debbie's page is in the comments. It's creativityfound.co.uk/Debbie Page Ceramics. And that page links to all of Debbie's social pages, to her website and things like that. And if you were to join the Creativity Found Collective, you would get one of those lovely pages as well, with lovely pictures and lovely links, which are great for SEO, going all the way back to your website and things. This streaming that we've been having fun with, I do this on Riverside. There's a link in the show notes as well, in the description, to Riverside, in case you fancy going live like this in the future. I've also put a link to Buzzsprout in there, because Buzzsprout are who host my podcast. And if you've ever thought of doing a podcast, I can recommend them. So in the meantime, thank you so much, Debbie. It's been lovely.
You're very welcome.
And
you're very welcome.
See you soon.
Yes. Take care.
Bye.
Thanks for listening. Bye.